Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're listening to or watching this. This is the Awesemo Nhl Dfs strategy show. I am your host today, Michael Clifford. The regular host, Jake Harry, had to go open a Top Shot pack, so he's taking the day off. No, actually, he lost power, so I'm stepping in for him today. Joining me is, I usually have a lot of superlatives to throw his way, but this was coming together at the last minute, so I'll just say we have Mr. Josh Harris here with us today. How you doing today, Josh?
Not as good as Jake, not as good as my brother. They both got Top Shot packs. My brother pulled a number 5 Giannis metallic. So if you want that, get in my DMs. I'll give you a good deal. No, no, I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, you heard it there from Josh. Maybe he can be the broker between you and his brother for that Top Shot moment. So hopefully anybody out there that was waiting for a pack got theirs. If you didn't get yours, there's going to be more days coming up very soon to get those packs. So enough Top Shots for now, anyways, at least probably till the next NHL show. We're here to take you through a 3-game slate. But before we do that, if you could, please hit us with a like and subscribe. It'll help us grow the channel, help us get to the top of the algorithm. It just really helps us a lot, especially where it comes to bringing this almost on a daily basis now. So if you could just throw us a thumbs up, that'd help us a lot. Last night, tough one. Last night was a tough one. I'll say I pulled out a small profit, and I will take that and completely run, considering how much Jack Eichel I had. Jack Eichel was obviously a scratch right after warmups, which was right after lock, which means a lot of people got screwed on him. Josh, you're nodding your head. You were one of those people, weren't you?
Yeah, I had Jack Eichel and Linus Ullmark in my lineup. Ullmark got hurt at the end of the first, making a diving save. He came out after that. I was cashing the whole night until the McDavid empty net goal with Eichel and Ullmark. Kind of stings the nostrils. I wish I didn't log in to see I was cashing because I just assumed I wasn't, but that's a tough one. But tonight's another night. This is a nice little 3-gamer. Got some of our favorite spots. I don't know, how much more times we can tout Jeff Carter and still have jobs, but we'll find out.
Yeah, that's very true. We're gonna have to talk about it again, which is kind of the funny thing, but that's what happens when you only had 3 games. There were a couple games canceled today for COVID protocols, so we are down to a 3-game slate. Before we jump into those games and before we get into the review of last night, we have a question in chat, and it's actually a good question. Because, we talk about defensemen when we go through each and every game, but we don't really talk about, our process for picking defensemen. So, tonight we can tell you we like Drew Doughty, but that doesn't mean Drew Doughty's our number 1 defenseman or that we think he's the best value on the slate. When we have a lot of games, we have to be as concise as possible. So now that we don't, we can kind of expand on that a little bit. I'll just start with my process. My process is basically, I very rarely have 3-3 forward stacks with 2 broken defensemen. So quite often I will have at least 1 defenseman stacked in with my forwards. Most often it's a power play defenseman, but if it's not, I'll usually just dump down to somebody super cheap. If I'm stacking Carolina 1, for example, they're on today's slate. I'm just saying, for example, if I'm stacking the Carolina top line, I probably won't have a lot of Jacob Slavin or Brett Pesce with them, right? It would either be Dougie Hamilton or I'm going to dump way down to Jake Gardner or Jake Bean or something like that. I don't particularly, hate the idea of going to a Slavin or a Pesce in that situation. I just think in that scenario, you either want as much correlation as possible, which would be Dougie Hamilton in the top power play unit, or you want to save as much money as possible. Because those top stacks are usually pretty expensive. So almost always I'll have a rule in DraftKings where if you use a 2-man or 3-man forward stack that I have, a defenseman has to go with them. And then usually I'll have a one-off defenseman. Not always. Sometimes it ends up being a one-off forward, but I'll have a one-off defenseman. Sometimes I correlate with the goalie. Sometimes I don't. I try to correlate with the goalie as much as I can. But if I don't have to, like last night, I had some broken Hellebucks, I had some broken Linus Allmarks because I just didn't like the defense, the defense that was available for them. So I just took the goalie and went with the solo goalie. Obviously, it didn't work out with Allmark, but that's just kind of the way it goes. So that's what I do. I usually correlate at least one defenseman with a stack, and then usually have a one-off. I very rarely go 3 defensemen in the lineup, but I think on a smaller slate, like today with 3 games, I think it's viable. Just in general, not saying for this specific slate. I think, smaller slates, double defensemen or 3 defensemen, double defensemen from the same team or 3 defensemen in your lineup is viable. So what's your process there? How do you, because you're typically a 1 to 3 lineup guy, so you really have to narrow down your defensemen through the day.
Yeah, so I have a similar process. So like I either I'll go 4-3-1 with my one-off being a defenseman, or I'll power play stack like I did last night, and I'll take my top line that I like. I want to put in their power play quarterback, and then so the only way I won't do that, or I put in the power play quarterback for the top line, I'll either put if I was using Edmonton, I'll use Edmonton 1 for example. We'll just say Darnell Nurse is cheaper than Tyson Barrie by 500. If I could not get to Barrie, I don't mind using Nurse there just because of his peripherals. But I generally try to take my top line and get their power play quarterback in. Now, if I can't, because I'm trying to fit in I'm trying to jam together 2 lines that I really like, and I need a punt defenseman. If I'm going to use punt defenseman, there's 2 things I look for in punt defenseman. 1, they get some power play 2 time. And 2, if they don't get power play time, they need to be able to block shots. I just don't want to punt a guy just for the sake of punting a guy because he's 2,500 and he doesn't really do anything. If I'm going to go down really cheap, I want someone who's going to be live to get the block shot bonus or sees a little bit of time on power play 2. So that's really what I do. I'm with you. I don't really put 3 defensemen in a lineup too often, but I think this is a night you could if you want to get a little bit different. And then if I do that, the third defenseman generally is a power play quarterback or someone with a very high floor.
Yeah, the power play quarterback, I think this year especially, is a very important point, right? Because 5-on-5 scoring is actually down a little bit, but power play scoring is up. So naturally, there's going to be more power play points available for defensemen. So if you're relying a lot on that 5-on-5 scoring, you're probably going to have a bad time. So you're right. You need the power play quarterback or those block shots. Block shots are very important, and it's why we talk about the Matt Irwins of the world. Because when Matt Irwin gets 20 or 21 minutes, it puts that block shot right firmly in his radar. So good stuff there from Josh. I appreciate that. Picking defensemen, it's very important. I think some people just focus too much on the forwards. The defenseman and your goalies will often make or break your slate. You can pick 2 great lines, but if your goalie and defenseman don't work out, you're still going to end up probably 30 points behind first place. So do put a little bit of thought into them, but that's why we're here. We're here to help you pick your defenseman. So we're going to jump into these games, but before we do, I'd like to remind everybody that we currently have a college basketball promo running right now, just in time for March Madness. Our college basketball DFS projections are now behind a paywall, and you can access those for half off the first week when you use the promo code COLLEGE. It's $4.98 for your first week of college basketball DFS. This offer is valid through Sunday, February the 28th. So head on over to awesemo.com, promo code COLLEGE, if you want half off your first week of Awesemo college basketball DFS. All right. We have to get to these games at some point, so let's jump right here into the first one. We have the Boston Bruins with a 3.0 implied goal total going into New York to face the Rangers. The Rangers have a 2.5 implied goal total. Artemi Panarin still out for the Rangers, dealing with his off-ice issues. The guys on the COVID list, Kako and Keandre Miller. Now, they're not out for sure tonight. When you're on the COVID list, it's a day-to-day thing, and once you get enough negative tests back in a row, you're allowed back on the ice. So we're assuming that Miller and Kako are both out for tonight, but it's not a guarantee. Just always be aware of those COVID listings. They could show up off the list at 6 p.m. Eastern and, be in the lineup at 7 p.m. Eastern. I think it happened in Winnipeg earlier this year with Nick Ehlers. So just something to keep in mind there. So we have Boston going into New York, the New York Rangers. They're ostensibly missing Kako and Miller. And, of course, Jacob Trouba is still out. The Boston Bruins got the hell beat out of them last night. The New York Islanders of all teams put up a 7 spot on Yaroslav Halak. So Tuukka Raskos tonight, Alexander Georgiev for the Rangers. This looks like a lopsided matchup on paper, but we only have 6 teams to pick from tonight. So why don't you talk about your Rangers here first? Let us know if you like anything there, and then hit on the Bruins after that.
Okay, so Philip Hedl is also off the list, but I don't think he's going to be playing tonight because he had a nagging injury too.
That's right. They said he's going to take some time to ramp up.
He's been out for a month. It's going to be good when he comes back because they need center depth badly. But anyway, getting to the Rangers, Kreider coming off a hat trick. He's streaky, so when he's scoring goals, I think you can put him in your lineup, and he's still 4,600. I think he might be a pretty popular one-off. That second line correlates power play 1 completely. They're going to avoid Bergeron for the most part, I would imagine. They're going to get the second line of the Bruins, Charlie Coyle, Craig Smith, Nick Ritchie, which is, they're a pretty good defensive line. Like Coyle and Ritchie they're pretty good defensive numbers, but it's not like they're going up against Bergeron, who is just like a big no-no for me. So, if you want to take stabs on a fully correlated power play line, I think that's where you can go for the Rangers. If you want to play the Rangers 1, I'm personally off them. If you want to put in Zibanejad for a power play stack, that's cool. But I'm kind of at a crossroads what to do with them, just because they're going to see Bergeron for the most part. But their only good defenseman, Adam Fox, is going to be on the ice in that matchup. So, I think I'm leaning towards completely just fading Rangers 1. Even though it's a short slate, it's Bergeron's in the top 3 of centers I don't want to attack. If you want to have some Mika for a power play stack, you want to one-off Lafreniere for 2,900. I guess it's okay. I'm grasping at straws here on a short slate on this top line, but for the Rangers side, for me, it's this second line. I would imagine Kreider get some ownership for sure. If you want to get different with that second line, full stack them with Colin Blackwell, put in Adam Fox for 4-man power play, or you can leave Blackwell off and put in Mika, but then you're getting into a price point where it's going to be hard to fit the Bostons, the Colorados. So if you're okay with fading those 2 big lines tonight, I think you can do some things with the Rangers. On the Bruins side, looking at the Awesemo top stacks tool, there is massive, massive leverage on the Bruins tonight because, for one, the Avs top line is $2,300 cheaper, so people are going to gravitate towards them. It's a similar matchup. We'll get there, but the Coyotes aren't a very good team. The Rangers without Trouba, without Miller, it's just you're going into Jack Johnson and Bietto, and it's just a mess. But the Bergeron line is going to get the Fox pairing for sure, and that's a downgrade when you're facing the Rangers. The problem that I'm running into here is the Mika line with Lafreniere and Buchnevich have been bad defensively. They have been high event bad defense. 17 high danger chances against per 60. It's a 30-minute sample, but they haven't. Maybe it comes down a little bit, but they've been really bad defensively. So the way to get different playing Boston 1 tonight is using the full stack, because we've seen it on these short slates that Brad Marchand's always half the ownership of Pasternak and Bergeron. So you want to full stack them if you're going to use it. All these elite lines, I try to say it every time I can. You don't want to leave someone off an elite line if you can't afford to do it. You want to put them all in there. So if I'm using Boston, I'm using all of them. Or like I'll swap in Nick Ritchie just to save the power play correlation there. And I'm going to try to get them in with Charlie McAvoy, which is really tough. But it's possible because I was fooling around with putting in Colorado 1 with Pasternak. Like there's possibilities tonight. So you just have to be aware, like if it fits too easy, you're like, well, it's probably going to be duped. So for me, I'm probably going to be heavier on the Bruins tonight than the Avs just because of ownership. Like they're going to be lower owned. The Rangers top line is bad defensively. Yeah, they're going to see Fox, but like if the Rangers PK is not great, like there's just a lot of things going for the Bruins tonight in terms of ownership. They're coming off a game where they got absolutely pasted. So like it might be in people's minds like, oh, I'm going to the Avs tonight because they're seeing Aiden Hill and the Coyotes. Now, I also don't mind doing something like a little. I know the second power play, the Bruins doesn't get much ice time, but like if you want to throw in a cheap combo of like Coyle, Craig Smith, DeBrusque, Craig Smith, I think that's a nice way to get some leverage against the Rangers as well, because they're going to get the depth of the Rangers. They're not going to see Fox. They're going to see the Jack Johnsons. They're going to see the Biettos. They're going to see, Brendan Smith. Like it's just a mess. So like, I think, the depth of the Bruins tonight is a nice way to get some low ownership in a high ownership game.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought up the depth from the Bruins, because I'm going to echo your sentiments that I'm pretty out on Rangers 1 tonight. Like going into that, like the Rangers, like Lafreniere and Zibanejad have terrible numbers together this year, like 35% expected goal share together. Like Buchnevich is good, but he's not good enough to drag that line up to respectability going up against Bergeron. Like, I'm sorry. So I would say if I was going to, like, I'm not in on the Rangers tonight at all. I would say if I was going in on the Rangers, it would be some sort of power play stack, because the Bruins do have a really good penalty kill, but they do take they're well above average taking penalties. So, if the Rangers can get 4 power plays in this game, maybe they can score on one of them and then get an even strength goal to help you out. So, it would be focusing on that second line, like you were talking about, Strome, Blackwell, and Kreider, and then mixing in some Zibanejad with them just to get that power play correlation. That's what I would do with the Rangers tonight, but I'm not in on them. Like, there's just too many injuries here. There's literally one guy on the blue line who can move the puck. Like, I just don't have a whole lot of faith that they're going to generate offense against one of the best defensive teams in the league. Like, and I know our ownership kind of reflects that, but our latest ownership run still has Mika Zibanejad over 20%. Like, I get it's a 3-game slate, but 20 to 25% Mika Zibanejad going up against Patrice Bergeron, I probably wouldn't even do that on a showdown slate. So like, I'm definitely not doing it on a 3-gamer. Now that I say all this, it feels like he's going to Pavel Zacha me and go and put up a 3-point night here tonight. So if it happens, it happens. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm out on the Rangers. I love the Boston top line here tonight. It doesn't matter if it's the Zibanejad line or the Strome line. Like, I feel like Boston 1's going to run them over. The Rangers' last game, they were at home to New Jersey. They didn't really line match, and it was their game. I think it was their first game without Kreider, like their first home game without not Kreider, Panarin. Maybe I'm mistaken on that, but he wasn't in the lineup. And they basically didn't match. So one way or another, Boston's going to get a good matchup here tonight, whether it's against the forward line or whether it's against that defense, because Adam Fox can't be out there every single minute, even though as hard as they might try. I'm glad you brought up Jake DeBrusque, because Boston 3 is what's really catching my eye out of this game. Like, obviously Boston 1 is catching my eye. Like, I'm going to stack them. But Jake DeBrusque and Anders Bjork have really good numbers going back a couple of years now. When they're on the ice, they've typically played with David Krejci. But when they played down the lineup without David Krejci, we're looking at 2.6 expected goals for per 60 minutes, which is well above average. 55.6% expected goal share, which is great. They're going to go into that Rangers third line, which is I can't explain how bad they are. Like, Brendan Lemieux is well below average defensively, and Brett Howden, there's a legitimate argument he's the worst defensive center in hockey. So
be in the NHL.
Yeah, exactly. He would be in the AHL if Filipino was here, probably. So like, I have no respect for that Rangers third line whatsoever. I think the Bjork and Studnicka are going to run them over. So if you want to, I think this is a decent spot to onslaught stack, honestly. We have Minnesota and Los Angeles is in the next game. Like Minnesota can be a high scoring team. And then of course we have Colorado later, but if we came out of tonight's slate with Boston scoring 6 goals and no other team having more than 3, like I would not be the least bit shocked. So an onslaught stack for Boston here, which is like do you have any interest in? Yeah, it's frozen on my.
Bark twice if you're in Milwaukee, chat.
Can you guys hear us talk out there? Okay. Yeah, there's just some cheap defensemen on this slate, like in this game. I think the one I'm going to is Zaboral. Is there anybody else that's kind of catching your eye in this one?
So yeah, Zaboral for sure. I saw some people in chat. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. Who's playing with McAvoy?
Vaakanainen?
Vaakanainen, right? So I've seen people are like, oh, I want to play Vaakanainen tonight. The problem I have with him is he doesn't shoot enough. But if you want to put him in for 3,100 on the top pair with his minutes, I guess that's okay. But not enough shots on goal for me. Zaboral is probably the guy I'll go to. Rangers side, you look at these min price guys like Jack Johnson and Anthony Bietto on power play too. Like, just kill me.
Like, I feel bad for so bad for Pavel Buchnevich. He's got Brendan Lemieux, Jack Johnson, and Anthony Bietto on the power play. Like, oh my
God. What are we doing here? Just call up. They have some guys. Just call up. Like, they're not in the playoffs. They're not going to make the playoffs. Send these guys to Siberia and just play the kids.
Yeah. So
I mean, I'm off outside of Fox. I'm off on all the Rangers defensemen.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Like Ryan Lindgren plays a ton of minutes, but they're the emptiest minutes that you'll ever see in your life. So, yeah, I'm with you. Like, I'm not stuffing in McAvoy as my Boston one. Like, I wouldn't hate if people did that, but I'm probably going to dump down to Zaboral in the Boston one lineups where I use a defenseman. Either goalie, like Shesterkin should face, a fair amount of volume, but of course, a fair amount of volume against the Boston Bruins could be bad. But man, $6,600 on DraftKings. Like, what do you do?
So I was fooling around with Colorado 1 Pastrnak before the show, and the only way to really make that work is have Georgiev in net 6,600. Like, you hope he sees 45 shots, and even if he gives in 5, he'll have a positive score. So I don't mind taking some stabs on Georgiev in GPPs, but it's not great.
Yeah, and I think he could end up fairly popular too, because 6,600, you can put in call 1 and then put in a 6,600 goalie, and you still have 22,000 left for a stack in your defenseman. So I could see the Georgiev and Colorado 1 being popular.
Yeah, I'd rather go to Peterson or Quick, whoever really starts for the Kings.
Yeah,
on Georgiev. I mean, if you need the savings, it's fine. He's gonna get shelled tonight, it's a fact. But he might give up 6 or 7 goals. So buyer beware.
Yeah, it is definitely buyer beware anytime you go up against the Boston Bruins. Okay, I think we're probably good for that game. Let me ask. I just wanted to mention before we move on, the latest ownership run has Boston 1 coming down a lot and Colorado 1 up a lot. We have 3 Colorado players above 33%, McKinnon over 40%, Bergeron down at 21, Pasternak 21, Marchand under 20. So there's a good chance. Right now we have Brad Marchand at half the ownership rate of Nathan McKinnon. So it seems like if you want to go with an expensive stack, Boston's probably the way to go tonight. All right, let's get to that next game. We're going to have to do it again. We're going to have to talk about Jeff Carter for the 3rd time this week. We have the Los Angeles Kings currently sporting a 2.4 implied goal total going into Minnesota. with a 3.1 implied goal total. Now, we talk a lot about line matching here. We find it very important, and our viewers and readers found it important as well. We assume that the Joel Eriksson Ek line, Eriksson Ek, Fiala, and Greenway will go up against the Kopitar line from Los Angeles. But the thing is Minnesota hasn't been at home for 4 weeks. This is their first home game in 4 weeks. And the last time they were at home, Joel Eriksson Ek was down on the third line. And for like a season and a half, they'd used him and Marcus Foligno and whomever, Ryan Hartman or whomever on the third line as the shutdown line, which means that they would have gone into Ante Kopitar tonight. But obviously that line's not together anymore. Joel Eriksson Ek is on the top line. Marcus Foligno's on the third line. I'm assuming that Joel Eriksson Ek is going to go up against Anze Kopitar. Are you assuming the same thing here?
Yeah. I mean, if the coach looks at any advanced stats, he probably should put that line against Kopitar because if he thinks Foligno is going to go out there with Parisi and Hartman and try to shut down Kopitar, they're going to get run over. You have Eriksson Ek and Greenway and Fiala have some good offensive numbers. They're not the best defensively. It's still a small sample. We need that to come up a bit. It's pretty high event each way. So these lines, that it kind of takes me out on the Minnesota side. You know what I mean? But I would not have pause to go to LA1 tonight just because they're pretty high event, that Eriksson Ek line.
Yeah, and you talk about being Colorado or Minnesota 1 being high event. I'm just looking through their recent games, at Colorado, at San Jose, at Anaheim. Colorado's good defensively, but San Jose and Anaheim are not. So it's, maybe it's not surprising to see them trade some chances.
Yeah, I mean, listen, for me, I think the biggest part that we're going to take away from this game is we need to talk about both second lines here, and maybe even Minnesota 3, the Hartman, Foligno, Parisi line. But I'll start with the Minnesota second line because they're definitely going to be the most popular filler tonight, and I think there's a couple of reasons why I'm going to fade them. One, Matt Zuccarello's price has jumped way up. He was $2,900 2 games ago. Now he's $4,700. Yeah, Victor Rask is $2,900 and Kaprizov is $4,400. But you were alluding to me before the show, they didn't see any power play time last game. So on top of that, I don't want to play Victor Rask. I like Matt Zuccarello as a player. I watched him a lot when he was on the Rangers. He's one of my favorite Rangers. But $4,700 with ownership as the most popular filler, I'm going to fade them. So for me, LA2 is the spot I'm going to again. And I think you can full stack this line because Adrian Kempe's price has come down. He's under 4,000. He's on the top power play. Velarde's 3,000. Carter's 4,300. So the line's barely over 10,000 as a whole. You get top power play time with Kempe. You get power play 2 with Velarde and Carter. They're going to avoid the Eriksson Ek line. They're going to get, more than likely, for the most part, they're going to see that popular filler line in Rask, Zuccarello. And they just, again, whoa, lock in LA2. We got the dogs barking.
Oh, there we go. Dogs are barking. LA2.
So you look at this small sample, Minnesota 2 defensively, they're giving up. They have a 3.38 expected goals against per 60, and they have 13 high danger chances against per 60. So for me, it's LA2. I'm going to be under the field for sure. Minnesota 2, and I'll have some of that top line for LA, but I'm going to be fading Minnesota top line as well.
Yeah. Back to Los Angeles too. They're actually getting up to a workable sample now. We're up to nearly 70 minutes with Velarde, Kempe, and Carter this year. 1.9 expected goals for per 60, which is about league average, maybe a little bit under. That's not super great, but they're controlling the play. Nearly 52% expected goal share, which is not something that Jeff Carter has done a lot over the last couple of years. So it seems like Kempe and Velarde are really giving him kind of a second kick at the can here. But before I break down that side, Minnesota. Yeah, I wanted to jump on the Minnesota power play because it's an important point to bring up. Their top power play last game was the top line, the Eriksson Ek line with Fiala and Greenway, playing with Dumba and Brodin. And then their second power play was the third line, Hartman, Foligno, and Parise, playing with Spurgeon and Suter. Now, it's not to say that the Foligno-Hartman line is the lock second power play unit, because for one, I can't imagine that they're going to keep Kaprizov completely off the power play. And two, Minnesota too got like 20 seconds of power play time in the last game, but then they took a penalty and got yanked off. So, maybe it's some sort of disciplinary move, or maybe they wanted to reward the third line at the time. But I'm going to assume they're not going to leave Kaprizov off the power play, and that his line is actually going to be on the PP, him and Zuccarello and Rask. But honestly, like, that doesn't really change a whole lot for me. Like, the Los Angeles Kings don't really take a ton of penalties. They're nearly the bottom of the third of the league in that regard. And like I said, with penalties going up, or with power plays increasing, power play score increasing, those penalties are very important. Not only that, their penalty kill isn't like super bad. Right now they're sitting at 6.8 expected goals against, which is about the middle of the league. So like, this isn't like a smash spot from the Minnesota power play. And it's not like the Minnesota power play is something that we're super stoked to play anyway. So I'm pretty out on the Minnesota depth lines. Honestly, for me, I would take the chance on Minnesota 1 here tonight. I'm probably I think I'm going single lineup tonight. I don't think I'm going to play Minnesota, but Minnesota 1 is the line that's going to be in the mix for me, and I'm going to tell you why. I would do it on the prayer, on the hope that the Eriksson Ek Fiala line, that they're going to maintain the matching that they had when they were at home a month ago, and that would be putting out their third line up against the top line. Because if they do that, then that would be Minnesota's top line is going to be going out against the third and fourth lines from Los Angeles, and they are just complete garbage. Now, I want to really reiterate and make sure everybody knows that this is just kind of a gut feeling and a little bit of a gamble on my part. We're more or less expecting the Eriksson Ek line to match up against Kopitar. I'm just saying, if they don't, they are in probably the best matchup on the entire slate. So, I think it's worth, if you're MMEing, it is absolutely worth getting a fair bit of Minnesota. We have their ownership out. We don't have them as a good leverage spot right now. I think their ownership's come up a little bit. So that's one thing to watch on ownership and see if that might drop through the day, because, if that line's 20% owned, then no, I'm not going to play them. But if they're, 10 to 15% owned, then I think that becomes a much more interesting conversation. So for me, if I was playing Minnesota, I would be on the top line and add Dumba or Brodin in with them, because those were the guys running the power play with them in their last game. But I'm with you back on LA too. Like we said, they have good numbers together this year. We're up to about 5 or 6 games worth of ice time. They're controlling the play, which is nice to see. So yeah, right back there. Now, by the same token of playing Minnesota 1 in the hopes that they don't get the Kopitar line, I think you playing the Kopitar line in the hopes that they don't get the Eriksson Ek line would also be a good move, because going into Parise, Hartman, and Foligno is a really good two-way winger. Hartman's not bad. And Parise's just, he's getting too old. So I think if they do decide to go back to their old matchups, it would be a good matchup for the Minnesota for the Los Angeles top line. And we have them as a better leverage spot here. They're fully correlated on the power play. Minnesota is one of the most penalized teams in the league. They're sitting 6th right now for penalties or time shorthanded per game. So, I think people are going to focus on the depth here because there are expensive stacks elsewhere that they want to use. So I think that would kind of make me want to use the top lines a little bit more. So that's kind of where I'm at on this game. As far as defenseman goes, I don't know what to do with Minnesota, man, because Brodin and Dumba played 24 minutes last game, but it feels like they just have a top 4 of Brodin, Dumba, Spurgeon, Suter, and it's just whoever's playing well is going to play 24 minutes. Whoever's not is going to play 20, and good luck guessing who's going to go off on a given night.
Yeah, I agree with you. They're one of those teams, kind of like the Islanders were a few years ago. It's I just want to avoid their D-man because you just don't know where it's going to come from. And so, I mean, if I had to put in anyone, it's probably just going to be Dumba, just because like I like his peripherals. So if you had to choose one, it'll probably be Dumba. If you assume Spurgeon's on the top power play, I like Spurgeon over Suter. So like, if I had to rank him, I'd probably go Dumba, Spurgeon, Suter, Brodeen. But like, that could flip flop mid game, and if someone takes a bad penalty, it's something that I kind of want to avoid if I can. You know, if I'm using Minnesota, yeah, I want to try to get the guy who's on the top power play. But so for me, Dumba or just probably fade. And on the King side, if you're using LA2, I want you could put in Doughty and you get the Doughty Kempe power play one, but I think it's is it Roy or Wah?
I think it's Roy with him.
Yeah, Matt Roy, like I think he's on power play too. He's 3,300. He's been playing 22 minutes the past few nights, so I think you can put him in with Velarde and Carter. If you want someone mid-priced, Sean Walker I think is okay. Ole Mata 2,900, it's okay. I mean, I'd rather use like a Walker, a Roy, or a Mata way more than I want to use like Jack Johnson or like something like that. So I kind of like punting the Kings defenseman tonight.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Mata because he's been kind of in the doghouse all year for them, down on the third player pair, often playing like 14, 15 minutes. He was back on the top pair with Drew Doughty in their last game, and he played 25 minutes. Didn't have any points, but he put up 3 shots and a couple blocks. For his career, he's been good for close to 2 blocks a game. If he's going to play 25 minutes on the top pair with Drew Doughty, I don't mind Mata for sub 3K over on DraftKings as a one-off defenseman. All right, the goalies. You mentioned Peterson or Quick, whoever starts. They actually have them priced the same price tonight on DraftKings, which is nice. You don't have to worry about having salary for the swap. So you said you like Peterson. Is he your number one goalie on this slate?
I'm kind of up in the air. Like it depends on my bill because I like Kakkonen too. Like if I'm not gonna have Kings in my lineup. Yeah,
Talbot's starting.
Talbot, yeah, Talbot's what 8,200. Yeah, that kind of takes me off him. Yeah, so I mean, if you want to correlate Talbot, I think that's fine. But Peterson is that or Quick. Even if it's Quick, I think I would definitely put him in consideration as a one-off goalie. I'm not totally correlating on this slate. Like, yeah, if I need to go to Georgiev, I'm gonna hold my breath and do it. But like, I like the Kings goalie as definitely a better GPP option.
Yeah, and there are, if you want to correlate a cheap defenseman with them, like we said, there are guys like Roy and Mata that you can throw in, and that'll just that'll give you like a 10K goalie defenseman tandem, and then you can go ahead and build the rest of your stack. All right, I agree with you on Peterson. I might go to Talbot. Nah, probably not, because I'm not going to have Minnesota in my lineup tonight. So I'm with you on Peterson. All right. Before we jump to our final game, just kind of want to remind everybody that we're giving away free stuff pretty much daily here over at Awesemo. We just cannot stop giving stuff away. Today, like we do every day, we have free premium content up on the site. So you've heard us talking about ownership. Nathan McKinnon over 40% already. If you want to check out the ownership for yourself, head on over to awesemo.com. We have free NHL ownership projections today. We also have free NBA player rankings, and we have UFC pro plays available for fight night this weekend. So if you want some NHL, NBA, or UFC free content, head on over to awesemo.com and check out what we have to offer. We're almost at 30,000 followers at our main Twitter account. So if you're not following us yet, on Twitter, head on over to Awesemo_com and follow us on Twitter. Once we get to 30,000 followers, we're going to give away 30 free weekly passers to one of those 30,000 followers. So if you're not following yet and you want a shot at a free weekly pass, head on over to Awesemo_com over on Twitter. Give it a follow. All right. Final game of the night. Maybe the most important game of the night. I guess they're all important on 3-game slates. You can't just say one's more important than the other. We have the Colorado Avalanche 3.0 implied goal total going into Arizona to face the Coyotes with a 2.4 implied goal total. Hunter Miska starting for the Miska lady is starting for Colorado. Arizona looks like they're going with Aiden Hill. So we have a battle of third string goalies here tonight. That's interesting. Brandon Saad looks like he's going to be back for Colorado, but we didn't get lineups. All we know is that they said he's going to be back, and Matt Calvert's going back to the fourth line. So whether Saad goes back in the second line or Jonas Donskoy is on the third line or whatever, we still don't have complete clarification. For Arizona, they jumbled their lines again for the second game in a row last game. For the second game in a row last game, they came back from 3-0 to win 4-3. So I can't imagine that they're going to go back to the lineups that put them down 3-0 in back-to-back games. With some Colorado depth uncertainty, we have Colorado 1. At least we know that. We have Colorado 1 set, locked, and loaded. We don't quite know what the second or third lines might look like. We don't exactly know what Arizona is going to look like. So, Josh, good luck breaking this one down, bud.
So, okay, let me try to dive through some Arizona stuff here. So, the combo that I'm not going to say no for sure, but you're going to assume that they're together are going to be Schmaltz and Garland. And even though they did mix them up, I think in game, Arizona lines went absolutely bananas. They were just full blender. You just have to assume that Schmaltz and Garland are going to be together, at least to start. You don't know if Keller is going to be there. It could be Kajula. It could be anyone, really. I mean, and the problem is the beat writers don't really give you any info. So you got to rely off the team feed with 3 minutes before the game locks. I just want to cut you off real quick, Josh. Saul sent us in chat that right before we hit the air, they did send out lines: Sad, Kadri, Donskoy, Burakovsky, Comfort, and Nichushkin. Okay. So that's helps clarify Colorado a little bit. Arizona's still a mess here. So, all I could do is, with the matchups, you kind of go off how their lines were, right? So, at home, for whatever reason, they like to send out the Dvorak line against the top comp, right? So, I think that's why, Colorado – that's one of the reasons why Colorado 1 is going to be super popular. Also, it's, Aiden Hill, right? So, and they're cheaper than Boston 1. So I think if you're going to go to Colorado 1 tonight, there's a couple things with the premise that you're concerned about ownership, right? So there's a couple things you can do here. You can full stack them, but I think that's going to be the most popular route. You can full stack them with Makar, and it gets a little bit tougher to fill in. You just have to differentiate yourself from the secondary stack. You can full power play stack, right, with Kadri and Makar. I think that gets a little less popular. I mean, Kadri is reasonably priced, so it doesn't totally hamper your lineup. Or you can start doing combos you can double center, do McKinnon with Kadri and Rantanen, McKinnon with Kadri and Landeskog. You can put Makar in those combos. You can leave them off. But if I'm going to do anything with the power play, I'm going to try to get Makar in, just because Makar on his own really isn't going to do much, right? So if you think Colorado is going to go off on the power play, there's a good chance that Makar's going to go off with them, right? So, if you think they're going to not do much and you're still going to want off Makar, it doesn't make sense, because he's kind of power play dependent in that sense. If Makar's going to have a multi-point game, it's going to be from the power play. So I think the easiest route for everyone, even when I was building lineups, is just to put in Colorado 1 and then move on. But that's going to be the most popular. So I think mixing in Kadri, mixing in Makar, having all 5 is a way to differentiate yourself a bit with Colorado. I kind of like this third line, Comfort, Burakovsky, Nichushkin, as a filler if you're going to fade, the top line of Colorado. You just hope they're going to avoid the Schmaltz Garland line. I don't know the lines completely, but if they go into the Brassard line at all or the Dvorak line at all, that's a pretty favorable matchup for them. So for me, Colorado power play, if I was MMEing, I'd be over the field with full Colorado power play stacks. Be under the field as just the 3-man of McKinnon, Rantanen, Landeskog. And then I'd probably be over the field on the Colorado second line. I'd be over the field on Kadri. And then on the Arizona side, assuming it's Keller, Schmaltz, and Garland, and I'm not using those two lines, the two big lines of Boston and Colorado, I think I would want some of them. But other than that, I'm really off on Arizona tonight.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning like the actual lines that they went to in that last game. They went to the top line of Schmaltz with Keller and Kajula, and then Christian Dvorak between Kessel and Connor Garland, and then a third line of Brassard, Pitlick, and Lawson Krause. Like, I think I think the Pitlick Krause Brassard line would take the top line from Colorado.
If those hold, yeah, I
And
would agree with you. Yeah.
yeah, and that's just like that feels like a real bad time for Arizona, which and I think that's probably why ownership is coming up throughout the day. It's climbed from like 26% to 40% for Nathan MacKinnon. Like I think people are really starting to get drawn more and more to the Colorado side, but you're right. You have to get different with them. If it's a full 6-man onslaught, maybe it's you have to do that. 5-man power play stack, 3-man plus, take off Makar and put in Graves or Taves or somebody instead. You're right that they are going to be so chalky that you can't just 3-man plus Makar and then, go look for, Kings 2 or, even a cheap Boston 2, Minnesota 2. Like there's going to be so many of those lineups that you're definitely going to be duped. So you do have to get different with your Colorado line. You can't just 3-man plus Makar. I love that call. The one thing that concerns me about this game is like neither team takes a ton of penalties, right? Like neither team top 10 by time shorthanded. Arizona just slightly above by fewer than 0.2 penalties per game. Colorado just right on the border of average. So like we might not get a ton of power plays out of this game. So that's the one concern I have. The other concern is we just don't really know what the Arizona lines are going to be, and it's the last game, it's the last slate the last game of the night. There's no other games you can pick from. So if you go with Schmaltz, Garland, and Keller, and then all of a sudden Keller's on line 2 and Garland's on line 3 or something like that, you don't have anywhere you can go. At that point, you're just mixing an Arizona line and hope it works out. And I guess you can late swap and pray that it works, but I don't like to build my lineups and assuming that I'm going to have to late swap them later. That just means I built a bad lineup. So I'm probably out on Colorado in my one lineup, but I'll just reiterate that if you're going to use them, make sure that you do get different. Add Kadri, onslaught stack, drop off Makar, and go to Taves or Graves or something like that. I think that's probably the route I would go. On the Arizona side, like I'm out on the forwards, looking at the defensemen. Ilya Lubushkin, he's not a name that a lot of people would probably really recognize, but he's a name that people are going to need to know for tonight. This is why. In 101 games, the guy has 130 block shots, playing 13 minutes a game. Like he's averaging well over a block shot per game, playing almost no minutes. And right now, I think he's on the top pair with Oliver Ekman-Larsson. He didn't play a ton of minutes in their last game, but he still put up 2 block shots in 14 minutes. So like if this guy gets even 17 or 18 minutes, especially against a Colorado team that likes to shoot, it puts that shot block bonus firmly in range. So make sure Lubushkin is actually in the lineup tonight. If he's not, you can swap to Nicholas Chalmers. They're both min price, so at least you have an option there. But Lubushkin is one of those cheap min price guys that I like here tonight. I'm not paying $5,200 for Oliver Ekman-Larsson. All of his numbers are just so bad this year. His shots, his ice time, everything down. So out on Ekman-Larsson, Chychrun if I'm playing my Arizona power plays, but that's probably it. Like, honestly, I think my favorite one-off defenseman in this entire game is Ryan Graves. His price has come down a lot. He's not playing a ton of minutes. He's only playing like 18 or 19 a night. But he's shooting a ton. He leads their defense in shots per 60 minutes. He's one of the team's leaders, including their forwards, in shots per 60 minutes. If Arizona has a bad defensive game, he can put up a shot bonus on his own in 20 minutes, in 20 minutes of ice time. So I do like Ryan Graves as a one-off. I do like him. If you want to dump down your Colorado one lineups and get a little bit different from Makar, I like using him there. I should mention Connor Timmins is out tonight. McDonald is in for him on the fourth line, or on the third pair, sorry, but it won't matter. He probably won't play a ton of minutes. He's not a guy worth rostering. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I think I don't think I'm going to take a line out of this game in my one lineup here tonight. But again, if you're stacking Arizona, I would probably mix some sort of power play stack just because we don't really know what the lines are going to be, and you're probably going to have to late swap something. If you're stacking Colorado, you do have to get different. So look for an onslaught stack, add in Kadri, add in a couple guys off the third line, change your defenseman, do something a little bit different. What about the goalies? Hunter Miska, I don't know if people want to play him. 7,500 on the road. Adin Hill, 7,100 at home. Which one do you like?
I think if you're going to fade the chalk, right, in Colorado, and you want to get real spicy, like off Peterson and off Georgiev, like you put Adin Hill in there, he's going to be the lowest owned goalie, I would imagine, on the slate. You're going to leverage yourself against, 40% chalk McKinnon, right? If somehow he gets a shot bonus, like normally if this was like even a 5-6 game slate, I'd say, no, I'm out on Adin Hill. But like this is a 3-game slate. There's the cheap goalies like Georgiev's definitely going to see ownership. Peterson and Quick are definitely going to see ownership. Adin Hill's probably going to, not be in a lot of people's lineups just because everyone's putting in Colorado. So like on a 3-game slate, if you really want to leverage the field and hope that, like, I understand leverage doesn't completely work like that. Like he could still get like blown out of the water, but like if somehow he gets the shot bonus, gives up 3 goals and sneaks out a win, like he's probably going to be in the winning lineup tonight.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's a very good reason to use him here on this slate. Not a whole lot else that is really catching my eye from this game. I just want to mention, like, if people are hesitating on using Colorado 1 because they have quote unquote like bad numbers this year, like they haven't looked like Colorado 1. I just looked at their expected goal share from this year. Just this year, it's 64% with 3.3 expected goals for per 60 minutes. Like their numbers are still just like through the roof great. Nathan McKinnon is shooting 3% at 5-on-5. What are you going to do? Like that's going to turn itself around. I don't like giving people more fuel to play an already super chalky line. But Colorado 1 has been flat out great this year. They're just not getting the bounces. And eventually, once those bounces do start going their way, they are going to be an absolute menace. All right, let's quick review on the slate a little bit. Aside from Boston 1 and Colorado 1, Josh, which line do you like the best as a stack here tonight?
I think I'm going to stay away from the filler lines just because we talked about the filler lines and they're going to, be popular with the Bostons and the Colorado. So I think like I'm out on Rangers 1. It's not going to be from that game. I think I'm with you a little bit here. Like if I'm MMEing and there's any chance that Joel Eriksson Ekline's not going to see Kopitar, I think as long as their ownership is reasonable, I think both top lines, the Kings and the Wild, I think you can get a little spicy there.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm probably in my one lineup. I'm probably going to go Minnesota 1. Even if their ownership is like 15% on a 3-game slate, that's really not that bad. There's enough differentiation elsewhere in your lineup, and where so many people are going to have Boston and Colorado, right? You won't have to get super unique with those Minnesota 1s because there just won't be that many people with them. There are going to be too many lineups with Boston and Colorado. So yeah, like Minnesota 1. As a one-off here, one-off defenseman, one-off forward on this slate. There are a lot of guys that I do like to use. I think for me today, it's going to be Jake DeBrusk. Like I said, I really like that matchup against the Rangers third line. He has been shooting a fair bit of times this year. He can be hot and cold, but like I said, that Rangers third line match is way too good. So I like Jake DeBrusk as a one-off. How about you?
Yeah, I think you can go to Kreider coming off the hat trick. He might have a little bit of inflated ownership, but again, Jeff Carter, ooh, baby, Jeff Carter, 2021. What are we doing? But like, yeah, he's looking pretty good. So Jeff Carter, I think, is a decent one-off. I would want to avoid the Minnesota second line as a one-off just because those guys are going to have inflated ownership, and I definitely don't want to one-off Victor Rask. If you want to get weird, like, I don't mind Christian Dvorak as a one-off. He's going to be on the top power play time. I love me some Dvorak. Garland's expensive one-off, but he's someone else I would go to as well.
Yep. Yeah, I like Christian Dvorak. Used him the other night. It actually kind of worked out for me. So I'm with you. We're both on Peterson here tonight if you start trade.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Cal Peterson night. All right, I love it.
If it is quick, like I'll still be there too.
Yeah, it could be. So just watch for the Los Angeles goalie. That's going to do it for us here today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in. Before you head out, if you could, please make sure to like and subscribe. If you're not able to watch our shows on YouTube, they're all up on the Awesemo Podcast Network. So head to awesemo.com/podcast to check out our latest pods. Leave a 5-star review for a chance to win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Good luck tonight, everybody, and let's win some money.
See you tomorrow.